We are back, West Michigan. You're watching Living Green Programming. This is Forever Young, and we're at the Health Hut in Norton Shores. And speaking with Eric Johnson, Polly Wilson, I'm Ann Bratsburg, and we are talking about all kinds of things. We're just getting on a roll here, aren't we, guys?
Yeah.
Basically talking about how they've evolved here at the Health Hut, the special diets that they're trying to accommodate, the different allergy sensitivities, gluten-free. We talked some about raw food. We're talking about why the bodies, or giving theories as to why our bodies don't seem to tolerate food as good as they used to, what some theories, some reasoning behind that is. And right now, I think, are we going to move into talking about products? Is that what we're doing now? Or are we going to talk more about, well, basically, Eric, why don't you do this? Before we get into the special diet, just give a quick overview of, we were talking about how it is that we can get back to, as I said, the baby boomers. Remember how we were saying, though they weren't taught the healthiest way of eating, they're living a lot longer than the generation that's going to be before me.
Right, and I think what happened was, sort of big corporations got into the food business.
Okay.
And the more that happens, the more unhealthy the food gets, because they're interested in food that lasts a long time on the shelf. The longer the better.
Yeah.
And they're really into genetically modified foods, so all the food is exactly the same, and they can count on the crops always being exactly the same. And so they have a steady supply of the same food, and get rid of the regular cycles of nature, and just to sort of get it all down so they can be more predictable. But
not only that, it's kind of there's a theory too out there, and this is just a theory and opinion, that's kind of a cradle to the grave. Genetically modified, engineered food organisms or whatever are owned by our pharmaceutical companies such as Monsanto, Novartis, Merck, Pfizer. All these guys own these seeds. So we got it's like job security for the farmers, job security for pharmaceutical companies. When you eat genetically modified, you are compromising yourself, which can cause a disease probably down the road somewhere. And so that's another issue. It kind of puts a weakened state, I think.
We're all subsidizing our own destruction, really.
Yeah.
Because
that's a theory.
The worst foods.
That's a theory.
The worst foods that we eat are all subsidized by the taxpayers, like genetically modified soy, genetically modified corn.
It's been proven that dioxin, Agent Orange, the different chemicals that have been introduced, that all the birth defects that came out of those. Why is it so far-fetched to say that when you're genetically altering and you're adding chemicals to foods that you're not causing birth defects, you're not causing ADD, ADHD, autism? I mean, how do they know?
And what is Agent Orange? Agent Orange has another name. I can't think of the name of it, but it's a pesticide. I mean, it's an herbicide that's used today.
Yeah.
Agent Orange is still used.
Well, the third generation, there are third generation still coming up with Agent Orange. Probably, my father was actually where they were spraying Agent Orange in Vietnam. He was right in the thick of it, and obviously, and I was the only child born with anything wrong. I'm extremely rare. I'm missing the centers of my retinas, just like the seniors are, but nobody else in the family had any issues like that. And I've been meeting with and talking to a lot of second generation and third generation Vietnam, and realizing that there is some common ground here. There are so many strange, and one of the oddest things that we're learning is that several of them have these strange food allergies, one in particular, gluten. Now, look at that. Isn't that amazing to think there could be a correlation between genetically engineering and modifying and chemicals and these food intolerances that we're experiencing?
And why does the pharmaceutical company have to own our seed supply that our farmers are buying?
Exactly.
It's kind of greedy and thought-provoking.
And Eric, you were talking about addictions. You were talking about why people get addicted to food, how foods you feel are prepared so that they create addictions.
Well, they kind of have the magic balance of salt, fat, and sugar. They've actually come up with this perfect ratio for the human brain and the human palate and to feed addictions. They have the perfect balance of fat, sugar, and salt and everything, so that actually it becomes addictive. They know exactly. They got it really down to a science, and they actually teach it here in Michigan. They have it called food technology course, I think at Michigan State, or they're really into just making the food as unnatural as possible.
Well, they know what those triggers are. I mean, everybody knows that if you eat sugar, you're going to crave sugar, flour. I mean, when I had to leave, I noticed something. When I quit gluten, guys, I dropped 25, 30 pounds. And the reason is because I wasn't craving the white flour and the sugars, because it was harder to get the things that you craved and once you knocked that processed flour out, you lose a lot of that craving.
Yeah, and there are some high-profile health gurus that say that you crave the thing you're allergic to. It's kind of like picking a scab and itches or whatever.
Yeah.
And the thing that you're not supposed to have is the thing you crave and you want to eat the most of, and that's why it's almost it's kind of a weird catch on there. But that's probably been studied, and I'm sure it has some correlation with the. And it's hard to break it. It probably takes 2-3 weeks to break one of these addictions to wheat and corn and sugar,
right?
And whatever else it is.
Well, it's speaking of breaking these, and I know we're going to be interrupted by a break, but let's say someone comes into you and they've just been to their doctor and they've been diagnosed with a food sensitivity. Yeah. Show me some of the stuff here. Tell us what we can have.
Well, there's all kinds of ideas and foods. Gluten-free is becoming quite popular and very mainstream, I think. Even restaurants are starting to pick up on it. Some more than others. But there's like gluten-free granola as a cereal that it's wheat-free, gluten-free, cholesterol-free, low-sodium, casein-free, dairy-free, trans-fat-free. It's non-genetically modified ingredients. So that's a nice alternative for people. There's even a macaroni and cheese that you can get. Now this does have the dairy.
But it's gluten-free.
But it's gluten-free. So it has a rice pasta that most gluten-free people can have, and then it has the dairy in it, but it is a gluten-free mac and cheese.
And while you're on the subject of mac and cheese, maybe our cameraman can show this on the screen too, is they also carry here a wonderful frozen dish. It's a macaroni and cheese that's, you can get it either gluten-free with non-dairy cheese, or you can get it gluten-free and non-dairy. And you guys, you eat that, you would think you're eating the real thing. It's great. It's I think it's Amy's, isn't it? Amy's mac and cheese. And it says rice macaroni. Oh, it's good.
Yeah, there's non-dairy and dairy.
Yeah, dairy or non-dairy.
Oh, it's excellent. And moving right along.
Yeah, we have cookies.
Yay.
Lenny's oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. Now this one is all natural, non-dairy, wheat-free.
Probably has eggs, right? Because
it does have eggs.
Most people who are gluten intolerant can have eggs.
I know, and that's a hard one. I think Pamela's, I'm going to say, I don't know if I have it in stock right now, but Pamela, I think, has an egg-free one. I'd have to check. And Enjoy Life is another company. And there's a cracker, like a salty
Ritz. Yummy.
Also like a type cracker that people can have. And this does have egg in it, but it is gluten-free. That's nice for soups and whatnot. We have a cake mix. So you got chocolate brownie, and we have all kinds of cakes, vanilla, whatever, right on down the line.
And you actually have a lot of products, like they'll have a lot of pre-prepared. You guys have cheesecake that's real cheese, but it's gluten-free. You have a lot of gluten-free pre-prepared stuff.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah, we do.
In your freezer section.
And now oats. We have a gluten-free by Bob's Red Mill. Now has a whole line of old-fashioned oats, thick oats, and quick oats that is gluten-free.
What makes them gluten-free?
Because like oats tend to have gluten in them, and that's very important. And then there's a gluten-free all-purpose baking mix for making your pancakes.
And you know, this works really good. I've learned if you take something like this, if you're not, there's such a science to combining the different flours, and for a while I actually was into that, but I don't have the time anymore. So what I'll tend to do is I'll use the gluten-free baking mix in place of regular flour and just cut back on like baking powder. And it's amazing. You can pretty much substitute it pretty well for most recipes. If you turn to the baking mixes, you can usually get around them.
Yeah.
That's what I.
Yeah, it's pretty versatile. There's not much you can't make with a baking mix.
Actually, that's very true. Very true.
Yeah, you can pretty much make anything. You can make pies, biscuits. People like pancakes, waffles, whatever. And it'll be completely gluten-free. And I think you can even make it allergy-free to the extent that, that it doesn't have eggs in this one. So you can make it completely without eggs, completely without dairy.
Exactly. There's so many ways of learning, and these guys can tell people as well. Maybe we can start doing some segments where we show people some substitutions. Like if you're allergic to egg, you can oftentimes substitute tofu. There's different things you can use. You can use flax seeds. I mean, there's
we have a lot of good substitutions, and there's almost anything that you want gluten-free is available.
I think we should do a show sometime on just substituting. including. Show people how they can get around using dairy, how they can get around using eggs, wheat, different things that they. And I'm curious about something.
When we come back, we will talk more about her curiosity, and we will talk about curiosity, and we will talk about supplement ideas that will help if you make a mistake and eat something you shouldn't, or you're going to go to a party and you really want to splurge, or whatever. But we'll talk about that when we come back after this break for Forever Young.